Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So the theme for our talks for the next for a few months will be about self-dedication to the Dharma, the practice, and the service. And so we had Master's talk last time, and so I hope I understand the topic well. I'm going to apply and connect this topic to a sutta called the Maha-Nidana Sutta, and talk about this sutta in relationship to Dharma practice and service. So several months ago, Eileen actually brought to my attention a section from Bhante G's book in which he quoted from this sutta. And I thought, oh, this is very deep. I should learn about it. So I've been spending some time trying to understand the sutta. First, let me just say a few words about the idea of self-dedication to Dharma practice and service. Mindfulness is this cultivation of our sitting practice to calm the mind, to be able to have insight, combined with an understanding of our purpose. So we can divide our understanding of purpose into three parts. The first is a long-term purpose. This can be this dedication to the Dharma practice and service by understanding our goal to liberate from suffering all sentient beings through an understanding of the Four Noble Truths. We can also say that there is kind of a mid-range kind of purpose, which is to cultivate our own diligent practice of the four foundations of mindfulness and the 7 factors of enlightenment, to be able to apply this to our daily life so that we can actualize our liberation from suffering. And still there is a very short-term, here and now purpose, to be present in every moment, putting into practice the Eightfold Path, which begins with right view. We learn to observe and accept and let go, to apply loving kindness and compassion, altruistic joy and equanimity, and also the 6 paramitas. So of generosity, morality, patience, cheerful effort, concentration, and wisdom, so that we learn to put all of these things together in our practice. So the first of the 7 factors of enlightenment is that of mindfulness. The second is investigation. So today we're going to investigate the Maha-Nidana Sutta. Why is this so important? Because it was just after enlightenment that the Buddha turned his attention during the first and second watches of the night to the 12 links of dependent origination. So the dependent origination is the topic of the Maha-Nidana Sutta. There are other suttas where the 12 links are discussed. One of them in great detail is the Samaditthi Sutta. Right view, sama meaning right, ditti meaning view, right view. And this is a sutta in which actually Sariputta, rather than the Buddha, gives an in-depth discussion of the 12 links of dependent origination. And he goes step by step. So as we study the 7 factors of enlightenment, as we've been doing that in the last section of our talks, it's very helpful to connect our subjects. So as I said, we practice first right mindfulness, and then investigation. We apply our energy. These are the first 3 of the 7 factors of enlightenment. And then the fruit of these 3 factors leads us to joy and tranquility and gives us an opportunity to enter into deeper levels of concentration and equanimity. So the Samadhi Sutta, right view, is a little different than that of Maha-Nidana Sutta. In the Samadhi Sutta, Sariputra responds to those asking him questions. They asked him, would there be another line of reasoning by which a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view who has arrived at the true Dharma? And Sariputra responds, there would. And in this section he's talking about cravings. When a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns craving, the origin of craving, the cessation of craving, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of craving, then he is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dharma. And what is craving? And what is the origination of craving? What is the cessation of craving? What is the way of practice leading to the cessation of craving? Sariputra continues, there are these 6 cravings. Craving for form, craving for sounds, craving for smells, craving for taste, craving for tactile sensations, and craving for ideas. This is called craving. So, from this origination of feeling comes the origination of craving. From the cessation of feeling comes the cessation of craving. And the way of practice leading to the cessation of craving is just this very noble eightfold path. Right view, etc. So this is the essence of how the Samadhi Sutta talks about cravings. In the Maha-Nidana Sutta, however, this sutta goes through the 12 links in a very similar way, except in 2 sections. One section is on craving, and the other is on consciousness. I'm not going to talk about the section on consciousness at all today, just talking about craving. So it's as if a person could walk around with a little book, maybe like this, and this book would be called The 4 Noble Truths. And on the back of the book, it would have the 4 Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. And then a person might be able to open up this book and say, okay, what is the 8-fold factors, the 8-fold path? So right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration. This would be right mindfulness and right concentration. Here we would have the 8-fold path. So this is very nice. But what do these 8-fold, what does this 8-fold path mean? So then a person could go more deeply into the 8-fold path and see that it was divided into 3 parts. The sila, which would mean the application of our precepts. The samadhi, which has to do with meditation, which is taught particularly in 2 suttas to a great degree, the anapanasati, mindfulness of breath, and satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And then the cultivation of wisdom, panya. This is related to the 12 links of dependent origination, our topic for today. So then if a person was able to go more deeply and unpack this even more, they could open it up and they would say, oh, anapanasati and satipatthana, mindfulness of breath, and 4 foundations of mindfulness, both of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Can we apply that to our practice of understanding dependent origination? And can we apply it specifically, in this case, to our understanding of clinging? So then the person, when they figure it out, then they can wrap it all up into a small container that they can take with them. So the teachings are like this. You learn one aspect, then you go a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper, and this going deeper is actually in 3 parts. One part of going deeper has to do with intellectual investigation of the teachings. Go deeper into that. Another part of this is your own investigation, looking into your own mind to the degree that you can. And then the third part has to do with an understanding that there are other people out in the world who have dedicated themselves to this practice, and we can look more deeply into how it is that they conduct their lives. This is the monastics, the teachers, the Sangha. We can see their example. Even without words, we can observe how it is that they apply the practice. So let's look into the Maha-Nidana Sutta. I've given you some pages here, and I put it into English, this one section. This is from the Long Discourses, Digna Nikaya, number 15, and it's from section number 9. And I also, for those people who like Pali, I put it there for you. And also from the Agama, I had the help of our good friend Caddy to go into the Agama and find that section in Chinese as well. I hope I did it okay. So if we look at this one section together, we realize that the Buddha says to Ananda, his attendant, feeling conditions craving, craving conditions seeking, seeking conditions acquisition, acquisition conditions decision-making, decision-making conditions lustful desire, lustful desire conditions attachment, attachment conditions appropriation or possessiveness, possessiveness conditions avarice or greed, avarice conditions the guarding of possessions. And because of the guarding of possessions, there arises taking up of sixth and sword, quarrels, disputes, arguments, strife, abuse, lying, and other unskillful states. This is the warring mind. We have this in the world all around us. So these are actually the 10 steps of how the mind goes from craving all the way to creating a fight. And it happens on the micro level within the own mind, and a macro level we can see it in the whole world, how fighting occurs. So, using the tool of investigation, we can study the words and see what the words mean. Pali, Chinese, we can look into this in greater detail. And we can even study the history or the meaning of the words if we like. This is very good. But also, we need to be able to practice it within our own mind and see it happening. So for example, if a person has a feeling, in my body, I'm feeling a little tired. And then I have a thought, chocolate would be good. So I begin to have a little craving of chocolate. So this causes me to go to the cupboard. I'm going to look there seeking the chocolate. And then I see the chocolate, I acquire it, I take it out and I look at it, and now I have to make a decision. Do I eat the chocolate or not? the chocolate, suddenly the first thing that happens after I'm finished with the chocolate is I want more chocolate. This is the next step, lustful desire. So the term in Pali is the term chanda raga. This is a very interesting term because if we study the hindrances, the 5 hindrances, we come across in the very first hindrance a term very similar to this. This term in the 5 hindrances is kama chandra. So kama chanda is very similar to chanda raga. Raga and chanda, chanda means the inclination towards something. So it's neutral. It's just the leaning towards it. So I did this in desire, in this case. Kama is kind of very sense-based, and raga means wanting more. Raga has more to do with greediness. Although sometimes the terms are used rather interchangeably, but raga means I want something more. There's also a word moha, which is used a lot in the suttas, that means not only do I want more of it, but I want to hold on to it. These words are sometimes used interchangeably, but here, this lustful desire is, I want more of it. That's what decision-making leads to in this case. So this wanting more conditions attachment. So in this case, the word attachment as a translation is a little bit confusing because the next link in the chain from feeling to craving is clinging. Sometimes that's also translated as attachment. But that word in Pali is upadana, in the next level from craving. Tanha leads to upadana. But here the word is ajosana, which means, again, this very strong being bent on something. So here we have chanda, which is an inclination. I'm beginning to incline myself in that direction, so I start leaning in that direction. Now I'm bent over. So it's a physically stronger image. Now I'm bent on something. Now I have to lean forward even more in order to get what it is that I want. That's what the meaning there. So attachment means I really want it. So this really wanting, this being bent on something in almost like in an obsessive way, this conditions possessiveness. Whatever chocolate is in the shelf, I better hide it because I don't want anybody else to get it. So now this is my chocolate. So this possessiveness conditions avarice. Avarice is a special kind of greed, like, oh, this is all mine. I have to collect it, and I can count it out. I like to count to see how many pieces of chocolate I have. And then I have to guard the possessions. Probably I need to put a mousetrap right in front of the chocolate. So if somebody goes to get it, they'll get snapped. So when I put the mousetrap there, I'm just trying to protect my good chocolate. Somebody gets their finger caught in there. My wife, her finger gets caught in the mousetrap, now known as the chocolate trap. And she picks up a stick and she starts hitting me with it. How dare you get me, ruin my fingernail that I've been growing for so long? Hits me on the head. This is the beginning of a quarrel. All started by this feeling that I had that I wanted chocolate. So if we study this in our mind, we realize, in each moment the mind has a feeling and a craving. When we notice that and how that leads to seeking and acquisition and decision making and this inclination towards possessiveness and holding on to it and guarding it, and how it's going to lead to trouble. You have to be aware. Oh, this is troublesome. This is going to create problems. So in the Maha-Nidana Sutta, all of the other 12 links, except for this one and consciousness, is explained very similarly as it would be in the Samadhi Sutta. But this one, it goes and it explains, it unpacks in a greater way this idea of craving. So I've given you some sheets that have on the back the deeper meaning with some of the etymology and some of the Chinese, thanks to Patty for her help. I'm not going to go into this so much. It's just there for you for your own practice to understand some of the meanings. And then on the other page I have the 12 links. And then on the back of that I have what I call the 12 modes that are the 3 phases of understanding the Noble Truths. So this then leads us to service. At first, when a person becomes aware of the 4 Noble Truths, say, oh, this is very nice, I can sort of see how this happens. They put it aside, they go back to their own habit energy. Then something happens troublesome, and they go back and they say, oh, I should understand the 4 Noble Truths in more detail. Maybe I need to find out more about this Eightfold Path. And they go deeper and they say, oh, this Eightfold Path, each one of the terms in the Eightfold Path, like right speech, I should understand what right speech really means. What are the different aspects of right speech? So they begin to understand it, and they realize, oh, right speech is not just 2 words. Right speech means learning how to control and direct the speech in a different way than usual. So the person begins to apply that, and they begin to see that each one of the Eightfold Path, each of the stages in the Eightfold Path really go much deeper. So they begin to understand, oh, this is very deep. So when they get to right view, what is right view? They begin to realize, oh, dependent origination. I need to understand dependent origination. But dependent origination is very deep. Most people, when they become aware of dependent origination, they first become aware of craving. This is the 8th stage. They see craving and they see clinging. This is what they see in the mind, and that's pretty much all that they see. And then when they penetrate more deeply, they can begin to expand from that and begin to see how these things connect. So then understanding feeling becomes very important. Because without understanding feeling, we just are subject to our cravings. So this, in many of the teachings on and commentaries on the Eightfold Path, there's a great emphasis on understanding feeling. Because the teachers realize people are caught up in craving. To be able to stop the craving, understand feeling first. But the Buddha also understood that there were these different stages in craving. So maybe if a person is caught up in craving, they can stop themselves from doing harm by being aware of these different stages in the craving as well. So this is the application of the teaching in our daily life. So service is how we apply the teachings to benefit all beings. So each one of us has an aspect of our lives where, as lay people, we are focused in what it is that we do on a daily basis. So we need to be able to take what it is that we are learning in our practice here and to be able to apply it to our family and also to apply it to our work, vocation. So my work is that of a psychotherapist. So all day I listen to sounds of suffering. People come in, they tell me what's troubling them. So I have to apply these teachings because without applying these teachings, I can't remain in the moment, non-judgmentally focused on my purpose of being of benefit. And then, whenever it's appropriate, I can translate the teachings into some kind of form of medicine for them, using whatever skillful means that I have to teach them how to heal themselves and to let go of their suffering. So I don't have to call it Buddhism. I can call it just other things. Sometimes people will say to me, oh, these things that you're telling me, this sounds very good. I like that. Where did you learn this? I said, well, I learned it as part of Buddhism, Buddhist psychology. Become interested in that. So I can apply the teachings in that way. If they have an interest, they can go further with it. If not, they can just apply it within that context. So first, a person will have a knowledge of knowing that the Four Noble Truths are right and make sense to them. And they begin to practice. They begin to understand dukkha in its different forms. They understand dukkha, suffering when they become sick, or something changes in their life, or even when things are going seemingly just as they would like, there's this subtle sense of impermanence that they become aware of. They realize, oh, yes, every moment is touched by suffering. And so they begin to ask, what is this cause of suffering? This accumulation of suffering? This craving is what they begin to realize. Craving is the cause of this suffering. Craving in its three different forms. Craving for sense desire, for staying alive, existence, and sometimes even the craving not to exist. Then they become aware, oh, maybe there's a way out of this. Maybe I don't have to be stuck in this cycle. And that suffering can be eradicated. How do I do this? Follow the Eightfold Path. Let me try that out. And then as the person becomes aware of this, they go back and they begin to develop the second level of the three phases of the 12 modes. The knowledge of the task to be achieved. This means the application. The person now is convinced, yes, this works, but they don't yet know how to do it. So they have to fully understand how to abandon, how to be released, and how to develop. its qualities. And then finally, after further practice, then they come to the full understanding, the full abandonment and realization and the development. So this is the process by which we come to practice. So next time when we meet, I hope to, I'm giving myself the challenge to try to understand the section of the Maha-Nidana Sutta which has to do with consciousness. I looked at it and it scared me, so I put it away. I'm going to try it out again, and I'm going to promise that I'm going to give my best understanding of it, very limited, and then maybe Master will follow up on understanding of consciousness. Maybe Master will then give the next talk on consciousness from the Maha-Nidana Sutta. I give you that challenge. Okay. If you never see me or Master again, it means that we got frightened by it. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be separated from the sacred joy which is free from suffering. And may all beings dwell in the